The following production is intended for entertainment purposes only. We are not legal professionals. We do not speak for any government agency, and the opinions expressed here are our own. Relax.
Yo.
What up, playa?
Another day in paradise.
Yeah.
You know, it's
Um,
weird. The days just don't stop coming
well, until they stop.
until they do.
Isn't that wild to think
Yeah.
that to consider that one of the look at me just immediately taking it into death and dying and something dark.
Yeah.
Potentially something dark. Yeah,
Sweet.
that's yeah, glad to do it. Thanks for having me. Um
How have
well
you been?
oh, not so bad. Um did we not say, and it doesn't really matter who's right or wrong here, but I think that it's me. Did we not say 12 CST?
No, we did, but you said
Okay.
or earlier if you want.
Okay. Okay. Yeah, I wondered if maybe that's what you were going for. Uh, but yeah, man, I'm doing pretty good. I think we got a couple days break of rain, so that'll be nice.
Has it been raining there?
Holy cow, dude, so much.
Well,
Um,
tell me about the twister.
well, first off, yeah, I think we got like 4 inches of rain the other day.
Uh-huh.
And yeah, we've just had several nights like that where it's just downpoured for hours.
And
Um,
it's these rains. It's I know them from third shift, but everybody knows them, but it's just part of third shift where it's these rains where you literally cannot see a foot in front of your headlights
yeah.
and you're going
Um,
70 miles an hour down the highway potentially when these things will just
yeah,
right
yeah.
on top of you.
So actually the weatherman that I was listening to, I don't usually watch the news or the weather, just because I get most of it on my phone. But when there's like severe storms or whatever, it's still a safety net. Tune into KFDI, the weather station,
Sure.
or the news. So I put it on channel 12,
Uh-huh.
and the weather guy was just I was vibing with him, man. Like he was just giving he wasn't like a lot of the weather guys seems like they're all about scaring people and blah blah, like it's just making it more dramatic than it needs to be. I felt like he was just giving some just good tips. So much so that I even told my wife, I was like, I really like this dude. Like I'm
Did he
vibing.
did he seem concerned?
I mean, he was kind of, and I think that was part of what I picked up on. He was serious,
Yeah.
but he wasn't like, holy cow, like everything's falling apart. Like he did. Here's one thing that really irritates me when the news guys, like, let's say you're watching 10 o'clock news,
Uh-huh.
and the newscast ends at 10:30, right?
Uh-huh.
But there's some severe weather, and when they're doing the newscast, they're wearing their suit.
Yeah.
They go to commercial, they come back, now they got their suit off,
You're
rolled
breaking
up,
up.
just to kind of prove that, hey, we're in the trenches here. Like you said, I'm breaking up.
Yeah, you did, but I think I heard what you said.
Oh,
They got their sleeves rolled up and they're more serious. They're like, all right, folks.
yeah, like we're in the thick of it now. But this dude he was just kind of level headed and just good advice. But so yeah, we're right on the county line,
Uh-huh.
and from what I understand, I think the tornado sirens operate per county. Now, there was talk that they were going to like make them neighborhood specific or area specific, because it doesn't do me any good out here by Rose Hill to get a tornado warning for out near Mount Hope, just
Yeah.
because we're both in Central County. Um,
But I don't
so nor
I think it is controlled by county, but I think it is still regional in that county. Almost like maybe 911 controls them or someone in that building.
yeah, probably emergency management. But
Yeah.
there was a time when for sure it was county specific.
Okay.
So And I
So
think that's
that would happen. Like Mount Hope would get a tornado, and you'd get sirens in Derby.
yeah. And so I think honestly that's part of what I think that's part of the culture of you're about to drink out of a 2 liter.
It's a big one.
Yeah, man. What is that? 1.5 liter?
I don't know. It was the smallest one they
Chub?
had at the gas station. This isn't even mine.
I hope they called that the big chub.
Are you talking about what they called me in high school? No. No. No, this is 23 flavors, man. It's just regular Dr. Pepper. It was the only one they had when I went to get I got myself a DC, a Diet Coke, and I got her a DP, but
Yeah.
that was the smallest one, so she got the big one, and it was too much for her, so I took it.
Yeah. That's chivalry is not dead.
No, not in this house.
But anyway, so I think that's what led to the culture of tornado sirens go off and everybody else goes out to look at the clouds because we just don't.
I want to talk about that. I
we
think
don't
it's getting
trust
out of
them.
hand.
It really is. So we're at home. The sirens go off. Everybody well, I don't think everybody did. I went outside. I don't see anything. So we're just business as usual. Well, then I'm sitting on the couch upstairs, and I'm telling you, the winds that were like I could hear the roof kind of rattling, and I'm sure it was just trees banging on the roof, but still, like it's getting kind of alarmed, and I'm like, why is he not talking about this wind? Like this is newsworthy, whatever we're going through. And just then the sirens go off again, and I'm like, okay.
Ooh.
Well, so we live off of the county line east, and there was a tornado, or at least I think it was just like a radar indicated tornado.
Okay.
It was directly south of it, probably 5 miles south of us off the county line road. Come from the southwest. So I wasn't, if all things had been equal, I wouldn't have been too concerned about it. But that mixed in with the wind, and mostly the fact that my Chihuahua was getting kind of agitated. I was like, oh yeah, well, Sarge has been through a thing or two. If he's nervous, then we'll better go downstairs.
Okay.
But we went downstairs, and 5 minutes later, it's gone.
Oh, I thought it was I thought you had been down there for like hours.
Oh no. No.
Oh, so just happened to be right when you were downstairs, you and I were texting?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. In fact, I was trying to review a file for one of the agents on the team.
Yeah.
And I kept getting distracted by the news and the naders.
When I lived I grew up in Oklahoma until I was 13, and then I lived in East Tennessee. But in Oklahoma, we had tornadoes. But I was in the city. I think, yeah, I was in the city too much where we had them come in our neighborhood, but maybe once I remember them coming. Actually, a twister came into our neighborhood, and even then, it didn't do a lot of damage. When we moved to Kansas, I had already, and maybe I was damaged because I was just getting out of the military, and I don't know, it didn't scare me as much as I think it should have. The first time we had a tornado there in Wichita, I was at my mother-in-law's house, and we all went out on the back porch, and I was like, okay, cool, I'm down for this. Yeah. I don't know how wise this is, but I'll do this.
Which one was that? Do you remember?
No.
Or like what area it hit?
Oh, we were in West Wichita, and I don't think it did a lot of damage. This was in 2015. It didn't do a lot of damage, but there was a tornado coming, and like we went out to watch it, and it was a lot. Didn't actually see. Oh, go ahead.
That might have been the one that hit Boeing. That was about that time, 15.
Yeah, actually, yeah.
I'll bet it was.
Yes. We didn't actually see it. We saw the sky turn all the funky colors, and we saw lots of leaves get blown down, and we drank beer and listened to Jimmy Buffett, and that was it.
Yeah, but see, that's a safe place to be, though, because if they go northeast, and they're already directly south of you, which I think that one started. I
Mhm.
want to say that one started around Clearwater. And then
Yeah.
it just kind of slowly made its way that way. You're safe.
Yeah.
It's kind of like old Lieutenant Dave teaching you in the academy that you got to get on the backside of that tornado. As long as you're on the backside of the tornado, you're safe.
I mean, I guess there's no way to prove it, but did he actually get sucked out of a car?
Oh, I
I
never
mean,
heard.
by a tornado.
I think that's someone else you're thinking about. And
And he was a narc? No.
he was a narc, and it wasn't me. And there are different stories as to what exactly happened there. That was well before our time, though. Just for the record,
You're talking
well
about
before our time.
tornado.
Well, we're not using last
No,
names,
okay.
but both of them.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, both of them. But so what's weird? Maybe it's not weird. Maybe it's just maturity. I do find myself just being a little more cautious. It would have been before, maybe even just 5 years ago, that I'd have been planted in the yard, like just watching, just waiting.
Uh-huh.
But now I'm kind of like, well, let's let nature do its thing, and I'll take shelter maybe more often than, because it's not like I'm gonna fight it. It's not like it's a bear. If it's a bear, let's do it. Like, bring it.
Yeah.
I'll fight you. But if it's a tornado, yeah.
I feel like this relates in a way. I feel like this relates in a way to why drivers are so much worse here in Atlanta than they are in Wichita. And I love Atlanta. It's beautiful. I love to be part of this very culturally diverse, but very historically, culturally rich part and, geographically beautiful area. I love to be here, but the drivers here are horrible. Like
Yeah.
dangerous. It's dangerous. And I drove my wife to the airport today, and we almost got ran over by an 18-wheeler that there was plenty of room in front of me. He just had to get over, and like there was multiple semi trucks. There was no one in front of me. You know what I mean? Besides way down there, he just had to get over right where we were, and I had to hit my brakes for this dude to stop from running over us.
Yeah.
I honk and flash my horns, but it doesn't do anything. Yeah.
He doesn't care.
Well, whatever.
Yeah.
I think it's because this place is so big, and I thought, because the reason I'm terrified, and I'm not the perfect driver, but the reason I'm terrified of driving is because I've seen so many people hurt in traffic accidents. And especially if I got a loved one with me, yeah, that stuff sticks with you forever,
But do you look at those things that you've seen as if it could be you, or do you kind of always just assume that, well, I'm an experienced driver and
Oh, no.
been through EVOC and all that kind of stuff?
I don't. So, obviously their pathways gets paved differently, but since childhood, I've seen, I don't know. I've seen unexplicable bad things happen to good people. So I've always felt that no one's safe. Like, oh, no one's safe. My neighbor, like, kind of like with the tornado, my neighbor's house just got demolished by a tornado and mine didn't. There's no difference between me and him. No one's safe. I know things in the military. I saw the most squared away dude, and he was a young guy, but he was in a really squared away team. We were on one side of this province and they were on the other side. They got blown up and he got hurt and sent back. And you'd think if it's going to happen to anyone, it's going to be to someone who's not as prepared, or maybe someone who doesn't have their guard up as much.
Yeah.
Is
that because we because we want to place some blame on them or some way protect ourselves, like because they didn't have as much training, I'll have more and be safer.
Well, you have to learn something from it or it's going to be wasted. Like with people that you and I know that were murdered on the job, there's nothing bad to say, anything bad to say about what they did that led to that. But if you don't take the time to at least think, what could he have done differently? Then I feel like you're wasting that. You're wasting that moment
Yeah.
because he's leaving you, he or she is leaving you something to learn from.
Yeah.
And it's not saying anything bad about them, but just to say, like, what could he have done? With this guy that got hurt in Afghanistan, I thought, well, him and a guy underneath him, I thought, man, if it wouldn't have happened to anyone, it would have been them, because they would have known, like, not to be there, or not to have, they would have known to zig when they're supposed to zig and not zag.
Yeah.
But they both got hurt real bad and sent back home. So I've always thought, like, but by the grace of God, there too go I, especially when I've seen accidents, because, like, I think a lot of Midwestern Americans from my generation, I maybe have, driven when maybe I should have called an Uber, back when I was real young, when I was a teenager, or, gotten a ride. I should have got a ride and I didn't. And I just, by the grace of God, got home.
Yeah.
Well, we've seen people that were totally innocent, that didn't have anything to drink, get killed by drunk drivers. We saw that multiple times.
Yeah.
And so, but also I think Wichita is smaller. This is what I was thinking, the difference between Atlanta and Wichita. Wichita, is a little big town, and there's lots of other towns around it that are part of that Wichita atmosphere, or I don't know, what would you call it? The Wichita space. In Atlanta, it is so huge where it's nothing to commute an hour and a half, 2 hours to work.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Lots
Blows
of
my
people
mind.
do it. Lots of people
Yeah.
do it. So I think people see more wrecks, and maybe potentially even by people they know in Wichita and in the Wichita area, than maybe what happens here in Atlanta and maybe on the East Coast, because these areas the cities are so big on the coast.
So you're saying that you experience more wrecks here just because you know more people, because it's smaller?
I don't know if you experience more wrecks, but I think you pay attention to the wrecks more in Wichita because it could be somebody you know.
Yeah. I'd buy that.
Like every time.
But why is it? Like they just drive like idiots, or what?
Yeah, they
drive
like
too fast or
follow
aggressive?
too close. I mean, the speed is one thing, because I think you can drive fast safely. I know you can. I know you can drive fast safely.
Yeah, we could argue that.
Yeah. Speed limits here is like 65 to 75, and in a 65 people are going to be going 85, and in the 75 people are gonna be knocking on 90, or in the fast lane people are going 90. I'm fine with that. It's just how close people follow. People get right up on you, or they'll cut over, like on your bumper, like taking paint off the front of your bumper. They'll cut off in front of you, and I don't like that. That makes me feel very uncomfortable when someone's in my bubble and we're going fast. Yeah. I do not like that.
Like, we're not the Blue Angels here, buddy.
Yeah. Hey,
we ain't flying in formation. Yeah. Now, I know this. This has a risk of derailing the conversation, but I want to know it. How would you, maybe not you now, but Two Keys, how would you have run interdiction out there? Stop, like, are you stopping? Like, everybody's going 20 over.
Yeah. But that doesn't mean you can't stop for it.
No, yeah. But I've always wondered, like, how, man, because I've driven out places
pull
like
out
that
in front of someone. I drove past a cop today going 85 miles an hour in a 55.
Yeah, just cruising, like, or going after
someone. I was in the second to the fast lane. People were passing me, and I was following the flow of traffic in the second to the fast lane. Like what would that be? The number 2 lane?
Yeah.
I was in the number 2 lane, and people were passing me and I was going 85. But there's also 3 other lanes of traffic between me and the shoulder this cop was sitting on, and everyone to the right of me. It's just a parking lot, but we're all going 80 miles an hour. Everyone's driving like this. And I passed him at 85, and I thought about that. I'm like, oh, keep it going, buddy. Just turn the volume up.
There's no way that he could pull out and get somebody stopped.
No, I don't think you can
Not
do
in
it
that
in
kind of traffic.
that congested area. You'd have to either be part of a task force or a state trooper to get, because another thing is jurisdiction. Atlanta has got to it's got to take up 6 counties, maybe. I don't know, like what people consider the Atlanta metro area.
Yeah.
It's got to take up about 6 counties or maybe more, and all the agencies, inside those counties. There's these highways. There's a big beltway, and there's a couple north and south highways, and a couple east and west highways, and a big beltway all around it. And yeah, I mean, it doesn't take, it takes time, but there's nothing for me to drive. Like, I'm on the far eastern side. I'm an hour in good traffic. I'm an hour east of Atlanta. I'm an hour northeast of Atlanta, but I'm still Atlanta metro area.
Yeah.
There's people that live where I live that work in Smyrna, which is on the west side of Atlanta. They're driving
Yeah.
2 hours every single day. So I don't know how you can, because I would follow people on interdiction. I would, build my reasonable suspicion. Maybe something's there, maybe something's not there. I'm going to follow this vehicle to find out. It doesn't take long for you to be out of your jurisdiction following a car here.
Yeah. Do they have a metro police, or is it like, are they all cities?
It's built up a lot like Kansas or a lot like the Midwest, but not exactly. You find a lot more county police departments here, which is totally weird to me. But there's a lot of county police departments that have a police chief, and there's a sheriff that does mostly jail, and that's in one county. But in the next county over, sheriff's office has a patrol unit, and there's other smaller jails all throughout the county. Yeah. Besides the county police thing, it's a lot like Kansas.
Yeah. I mean, I have to assume that Atlanta is I know it's a big hub for human trafficking, but I have to assume it's a major base, major operation for cartels and interdiction.
Well, yeah, there's, I don't know. There's a training platform that's very famous in interdiction.
Are they based out of Atlanta?
I don't think so. I think they started out west in the desert.
Okay.
But the guy that was my instructor for that class, and this is like a pivotal class that's almost like a rite of passage that a lot of interdiction cops go through. The guy who taught my class was a former Atlanta or Georgia Highway Patrol, and he got the largest cash seizure based off of a cold stop. It was like $23 million. And that was here in Georgia, but that was at the bottom of a cattle hauler.
Yeah.
Covered in inches of cow shit.
I mean, I guess the way you would do it would be to sit on the side of the road and just watch that thing that isn't like the others, the behavior. So everybody, that might be your guy. But I still
go back 5 seconds.
Oh, I was saying that, when you got that much traffic and they're going that fast, it's just a matter of seeing which thing is not like the other.
Right.
And everybody else is going 85 and this guy's going the speed limit. But I still wonder how in the world you would get out on him unless you're calling ahead to somebody else or something like that.
Whatever shook out of the Kansas Highway Patrol getting in trouble for stopping their out of state tags. What was the final fallout on that? Do you know? The last I heard, they got told that it was bad, but they were contesting it. Like the state was on its way to contest that.
I never heard any more on that. But I know a couple things that have been in the news recently that are just so dumb. So dumb. It makes me angry. They've been in the news for the Trooper 2-step.
Oh, really?
Which is just so stupid. It even went to court, and the I don't know enough details to really give it justice. But
are these old cases?
I mean, it was recently going through court, so I'm not sure
Hmm.
when the cases were, but so that was one of them. You know, the so obnoxious to me because even nobody knows, nobody has the same term for what that even is.
Yeah.
Um, and it's done. But then the other thing is, I saw a headline just yesterday about civil asset stuff,
Or yeah.
uh, forfeiture. Uh, and so I know that was a big deal back when I was going through it.
But what do you think about that? Like, how do you personally feel, especially now that you have separation from, I think, the party line of what you're supposed to say as a law enforcement
yeah,
officer? Like,
yeah.
how do you feel about the government, even if you did commit a crime, like whatever the crime is, and we're talking about houses and millions of dollars worth of assets that are taken away not only from you but from your family because you use that thing to commit a crime. How do you feel about that?
So really what we're talking about isn't guys like you and I,
Right.
even if we are criminals, like we're
Right.
not talking about, you're taking in some cases, maybe you are, but we're not talking about taking away a 2014, Dodge Ram. You know what I mean? In some cases we are for sure, but generally speaking, not a 10-year-old truck or a, $70,000 house, $150,000 house. I think that if it can be proven, um, and I don't know that
So you've established that
necessarily.
it has to be valuable to the agency. The agency has to look at it and want it.
Well, let me just say this. This is the reason we haven't won the war on drugs.
Yeah.
I have no doubt about it. This is the reason because I want to say billion, but I'm going to say hundreds of millions. It's $100 million industry for law enforcement and governments and municipalities to participate in in asset forfeiture
Yeah.
and to some degree engage in criminal interdiction. But that's the only reason, I think, because there's so much money tied up into it.
I'm almost glad that agencies and governments I feel like they never really got the memo on interdiction. I feel like no one ever really, because when I thought it was a big deal, I thought it was a big deal. Like I'm combating narco terrorists on these
Oh yeah,
highways, and you guys are
yeah.
writing speeding tickets. I'm glad. I feel I'm almost glad that the agencies or whoever never felt as passionate about that as I did, because they could have done a lot of damage.
Yeah. Uh, so I think to maybe answer the question, I think that if you're using it to commit a crime, or if it's the results of um,
Or if it's the results.
yeah, if it's the results, if it's the fruit of the crime, then I don't think that it's right to keep your spoils. Um, at the
But
same time, I think that specifically drugs should be legal. Um, but you know, if you're Tony Montana or Chapo Guzman, you know,
I'm going to take a controversial stance here.
do you? So it seems that you would say that they should keep it.
Well,
Why?
here's the deal. Just based on raw the law, like if so, you convict me and you catch me smuggling drugs. Let's say
Okay.
you catch me smuggling drugs, which a who are you to say what I can and can't have in my vehicle and what other adults can and cannot put in their body as long as they're hurting someone? So even outside of that,
We agree on that drugs should
yes.
be legal.
So, but let's say, 10 years ago, whatever, you catch me smuggling drugs. If you're good at your job, I'm going to get convicted. If you've built actual reasonable suspicion to probable cause, sure, I know there's exceptions to that, but I'm going to be punished. I'm going to be punished. Now,
But
okay, and
I
even if I'm not convicted, you're still going to take my shit. That's you punishing me anyway. That is a double jeopardy. You're sending me to prison and taking my stuff, my personal property.
So it's not
I
double,
already can't vote anymore. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
which should also be repealed.
Yeah.
I think that felons should absolutely be able to vote, and most of them should be able to. In fact, I would say all of. I haven't thought enough about this, but I think that felons and firearms, I think, is a constitutional violation.
That needs to be looked at. Yeah.
But I especially with our prosecutor, I don't want to put too much weight on if it's a good case that it'll get charged or that you'll go to prison, because
Yeah.
it's so difficult to get cases charged.
Maybe I shouldn't have even said that, because I still think it's by the letter of the law. That doesn't matter whether it's a good case or not. If by the letter of the law, you think I'm committing a crime, you're going to arrest me for committing that crime. And then, the judicial system's going to work its way out. But either way, if you think I'm committing a crime and you arrest me for committing that crime, the punishment is what the judicial system says it is. And that is, a conviction or a fine or probation, whatever it's going to be. It's what the court says, you're guilty, and do this. Now, if you're also going to take away my stuff, the first thing I need to question is your motivation. Because I know you're not doing this to everyone. Because I got caught when I was 21. You didn't take my crappy Honda, but now that I'm driving a Hummer, you want that? So
yeah. Or I had $800, you didn't take it. Yeah. So why are you taking 40,000?
Yeah.
Okay.
That's a real good question that I think someone should answer. And go ahead.
So it's I would say the answer from the prosecutor's perspective is it's prima facie evidence that you may have $800 in your pocket today. And that may be abnormal for the area, but it's not like, it's not way off the tree, right? But if you have, and this is a case that I actually presented, it wasn't mine. There were 3 people, it might have been 4 people in the car that had, I think it was $30 or $40,000. I can't remember what it was. And it was sealed and it was packaged and it was hidden throughout the car, throughout the body of the car. And there was one package that was in a duffel bag. All of the occupants gave different but similar stories that they were going the car.
They gave similar but different stories that they were what?
They were going to buy a car.
Okay.
The packaging was consistent through the money that's hidden and the money that's found in the duffel bag. Okay. One of the occupants bag.
One of the occupants did what? Dang it.
Dang, this freaking internet. We're supposed to be getting new fiber internet next week. I don't know if that's the problem or what it is.
Make sure all your Wi-Fi is off on your phone, or is it like in any tablets or anything like that, because that's taken from your bandwidth, unless you're hardwired in.
No, I'm not. I turned my Wi-Fi off, so maybe that'll help. But in any case, so nobody claimed the packages of money that were hidden in the car. One person claimed the package of money that was in the duffel bag, and that's what they were going to use to buy a car. So I think it's all bogus. They're laundering or they're hiding money. But there was no criminal nexus.
Yeah.
And since a person claimed, the prosecutor said if nobody claimed any of it, then you could seize it because it's unclaimed money. But because she claimed this and this matches that, you can't claim any of it because 1, there is an ownership of this package, and 2, it's a plausible explanation. Now, so I've never considered this way. This is the first time I've considered it. You could make an argument that, well, you don't know where they're coming from. You don't know the likelihood of getting your car broken into. You don't know the neighborhoods, blah, blah, blah. You don't know their background, all this kind of stuff. And so it is possible.
Criminals do that.
It is possible that, yes, they're going up to Nebraska or wherever it was to buy a car. Is it plausible? I say no. I mean, it's not plausible and it's not probable. But again, they want a criminal nexus. Well, they're not going to tell you on the side of the road or in my investigation, because now I'm investigating it weeks later. Nobody's going to say, oh yeah, I'm connected to this meth lab, or like, oh, I don't even know exactly what they wanted there, except maybe to find some drugs in the car.
Yeah.
But what do you think about that? Should that money have been seized? Should it have been released or even taken?
So I think it's real easy. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
I think it's real easy, especially when you're in our position. And I feel like this is the position that is almost like a stereotypical American position, and it's more complicated than this, but if you're not doing anything wrong, you shouldn't have anything to worry about. Like what, yeah, that's that. If you're not doing anything wrong, you shouldn't have anything to worry about. That's real easy to say unless you've grown up in an area where people get robbed all the time. People get robbed all the time and it doesn't get reported. Was there anything on upstairs?
I just had my wife make sure hers was turned off.
How do
I
you
don't
hear
know.
me? Is my sound good?
Yeah.
Okay.
So they're replacing our current internet, which is supposed to be high speed, which is like 50 megabytes download, 5 upload.
I don't know what any of that means, but yeah.
Yeah, me neither. I just know 50 sounds like whatever. Well, they're changing it to, what's it called? Basically, instead of a signal, it's going to be a line. So it's going to be 500.
Okay.
500
That's what I'm
download and
talking
upload.
about.
So, yeah.
I was gonna say you better wow me. If you gave me 50, you better give me something bigger than 50.
Heck yeah, man. I think I see where you're going. And I think go ahead.
So like this, obviously where I was going is unless you come from a place where that is normal for you to hide your money. I had a car stop and I remember I've talked to you about this a lot. You weren't I was working for the new interdiction unit when you were off doing other stuff, but I talked to you when this was going on. Stop a vehicle. Maybe you were there. Maybe you even showed up to this. But they drove up from Mexico straight, and they're going straight to West Kansas. And yeah, they drove up from I-35 and they were headed west on 400. And I stopped them and they said they were going to buy some farming equipment. They were going to, so they drove, and this is in my mind, I was building my reasonable suspicion with this, that you drove from Mexico where everything is dirt cheap. Like you can buy a tractor there for a significant amount less than you can buy one here in Western Kansas. You drove from Mexico through Texas, where there's all kinds of deals, through Oklahoma, where there's all kinds of deals. These are both very agricultural states. And then up to Wichita to then head west on 400 to drive or to buy this farming equipment from some farmer that they said they got it on Craigslist up here. But what I asked them for consent to search. They gave me consent to search. There was $24,000 at the bottom of a shaving bag that was out of the suitcase, but like underneath the seat. Underneath the seat, there was a shaving bag with $24,000 in it. And there was another 24,000, or no, 12 and a half, or 12,000 in the shaving bag and 12,000 in the guy's necklace. He had a necklace, like, one of those passport dad necklaces that you keep under your shirt. He had one of them and it had 12 grand in it. And I asked them at first, I'm like, whose money is this? And they're like, I don't know. And then the old man was like, this is the money for us to go buy this equipment. I'm like, it kind of seems like it's hidden. Is it hidden? And and I asked him, I was like, I went down my list. I was like, do you have anything illegal in your vehicle? I went down each thing to see how their reaction was to build a baseline. And I asked them if they have any large sums of money in there, and they said no. So when I searched, I said, "You told me you didn't have anything." And they're like, "Well, we're nervous." And this was like through not an interpreter, but through very broken English on his side and very broken Spanish on my side.
Mhm.
What he ended up communicating was that he was scared because the police take their money in Mexico. And I know that's a thing. Everybody knows that's a thing.
Yeah, but do you think that people don't know, and I'm making a big assumption here, that it's not a thing here?
No,
I,
you're
I'm
assuming they
confident.
know you're normal. What your normal is.
So you think that that was a genuine fear, was that you, Deputy Blackwood, would take their money, or not?
Well,
Maybe not you, because they don't know who's going to stop them. But
right.
regardless, that they may get stopped by American law enforcement, and American law enforcement may take their cash.
Well, let me tell you what almost happened. I almost took their cash.
Well, yeah, seized it, right?
Okay, seized it. Right.
That sounds so much better than took.
Then took with a badge and a gun, just like the cops do down in Mexico. Except down there, they call it a bribe or they call it robbery. Here we call it asset forfeiture. And in there, like everybody justifies all of their actions, and the whole entire scale of society, from Adolf Hitler to Gandhi, everybody thought that they're doing what's right. At least they justify, without maybe some exceptions, but everybody
Sure.
justifies their actions. It's so known. And by the way, what we call corruption is honestly how the rest of the world works. Like you have to grease some palms to get your permit faster in Afghanistan. If you want a permit at all, you're going to have to pay that dang inspector. And if not,
Yeah.
I guess you didn't want your permit. That's just how
Yeah.
the world works. In Mexico, they think that everyone's cartel, because cartels will murder police in broad daylight and hang their body parts on the telephone wires. So the police are either under the take already, or they're terrified that they're going to be murdered by cartel. If you assume everyone's a bad guy and everyone has been doing this, your supervisor, they even talk to you about this in the academy, potentially. I'm putting myself in that situation. I'm making a lot of assumptions. But like, hey, if you see a scumbag and he's got a lot of money on it, he doesn't need that anyway. He probably stole it, or he probably got it by buying drugs. Get out of here, kid. I'm going to keep this. We know cops used to do that with beer back in the day. And let me explain.
Yeah.
Like if they caught some teenagers out there booze cruising, give me
Yeah.
this, kid. Get the heck out of here. You want me to call your dad? No?
Yeah.
Leave.
Two options. I could take it, or I could take you to jail.
Yeah. Yeah. And so, like, and it's different, but that's pretty the same. If asset forfeiture is bad or not, I don't think it should be a thing. I don't think the government should have the power to take your thing because you're so bad. Like you're doing something that's bad, so I'm going to take your thing. When that's not a punishment, or it's not supposed to be a punishment.
Okay, but what if what's something that you would have no problem saying is bad and the government should intervene?
Murder.
Okay. I don't like that one. Give me another one.
Right.
I don't know if that's going to work either. Here's what I'm trying to get at.
Okay.
If you have a tool, there's a couple different ways to look at it. One, you've got a tool that is, you're on your way to use this tool to do this thing. So is
it gonna hurt someone?
We don't get to ask that question, because we've already established that drugs should be legal.
Laws. Yeah.
But they're not. So you've got somebody is on their way to use a tool to commit a crime. Should you be able to take that tool from them to keep them from committing that crime?
So, and I think this can apply to the current situation. Yes, only if it is a violent felony. I think if it is not a violent felony, you can arrest them and you can stop them from doing that crime, but I don't think you should be able to take their things. Like, you're already going to take their guns. So it's not a safety issue. Let's say they were, whatever the crime was, it wasn't going to be a violent crime, but let's say they had a gun on them. You're already going to take their gun from them. You know what I mean? They already know
Right.
that you're going to take their gun from them. And how I think it should rightfully, unless it was a crime using that gun should go to property and evidence for them to pick up later, because that's their property. Yeah. And only if it's a violent felony. And we can put that into the asset forfeiture now, because if it's not a violent felony, we already have a system to prevent it and stop it from happening. The only thing that asset would be helping if it was a violent felony is at least you're taking that thing away, because they can always get another one.
Yeah.
But
Well,
at least you're
that
taking
point,
that one.
and at that point, really what we're talking about is evidence. So there's a difference between saying this is a tool that could be used or will be used for a crime, and this is evidence of that crime.
Yeah.
Because, with anything else, vehicles are an exception, but with anything other than assets, we're not going to reallocate it. We're not going to use, in theory, we're not going to use that 2 pounds of meth, or cocaine from the evidence.
Look me up
room.
in the news. Google me, folks.
Yeah, man, I don't know. I am willing to say that I am not confident on my views on this, because like I'm open to consideration, because I've got such different views on law enforcement and laws in general, and the importance of them, and even the not value, but the morality of them.
Yeah.
Kind of going back to what you'd said earlier, that who are you to tell me, I'm a grown man, what I can and can't put inside my own body.
Right. Yeah. That's not a natural law. I would say, even though, and this is going to sound extreme, because this is just, this is my perspective from where I am right now on my ride. But I would say that is an unjust law, that it's actually an injustice that drug laws exist. Now, I don't think it's an easy navigate. I don't think it's a walk in the park to get out of where we are now, because I don't want teenagers to have access to heroin. I don't know. I definitely think you have to be an adult to consume these things, but I'm not a policymaker. You know what I mean? I just thinking about my own life.
I mean, you've got to.
I don't want my kids to do meth, but I don't want the law to say that no one can do meth.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
I mean, there's so many different considerations, though, that like with different types of drugs and things like that, like weed, 100% should be 100% legal, recreational, consumed by most people.
Yes.
Like I think
should
that it should
be consumed.
like no question about it.
Sure.
Other drugs, you just gotta. I don't trust humanity well enough to like it.
The Biden administration just reclassified weed to level 3.
Well, I saw the headline, but I'll be surprised.
Dang it.
Comes of that. But what I was trying to say, though, is on one side of my mouth, I'm saying that I'm an adult. I can do what I want. Like you shouldn't have authority over what I put in my body.
Right.
On the other, I don't want kids to have access, or anybody really, to have access to painkillers that are going to lead to an addiction, that are going to lead to all sorts of, even for myself. Like, it's a good thing for me that I can't go down to the store and pick up hydrocodone. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah.
But I don't know where the law comes in on that. Like, there's a natural law, like the reason you don't do stuff like that, so you don't overdose and die.
Yeah. So what we're really talking about then is accountability and ownership. So it shouldn't be the government's job to make sure your kids don't do meth. You know whose
I
job
agree.
that is
I agree.
yours.
Or
It's
my own.
yeah.
Even if there is a store that I could go buy hydrocodone, like kind of like Mexico when we went down there, one of the ports they had a little pharmacy where you could buy everything just
Yeah.
off the counter.
Yeah. I know exactly. I don't know the
And
one you're talking about, but I've seen those all around the world.
and that's maybe a good example of the fact that it was available.
Yeah.
And the adult me, my id, was it the id or the superego, whatever part of my brain is like, yeah, it'd be fun, but don't do it.
Yeah. You know why? Because your parents did an okay job.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I've got common sense to know that you probably don't want to die of an overdose
Yeah.
buying drugs on a Mexican beach. Like that's just not how I want my story to go.
Yeah. You know what else I don't want my kids to do? I don't want my son to try to break a window with his forehead. I don't want him to do that. And it's not illegal for like there's no laws to stop him from doing that. What there is to stop him from doing that is A, his own brain, common sense, and B, the way that I've taught him since he was a baby, don't break windows with your forehead. That's a thing that I always say.
That seems actually suspiciously opposite of what I would expect you to have taught him.
I mean, I said you can do it if you do aim for a corner. That's the weak spot.
What I would actually imagine is you can, you should, and here's how. Here's the best way to do it.
We're putting our parenting, we're putting our responsibility of our own self-governance, we're pushing that off of us and onto the government because we want when tragedy does happen, we want someone that we can point a finger at, say, hey, you were supposed to stop this. Like, well, sorry, if I had more power, maybe I could have done a better job at stopping you or stop it from happening.
But the interesting thing about laws and I think rules in general is we always want them for someone else. Like we never want them for ourselves. Is that because we trust ourselves to be able to handle it or to be able to not be tempted by it, but we don't trust others?
No, well, I don't know. Yeah. I don't know. But what we're talking about is we understand the word justice different than what justice actually is supposed to mean. Like, and I'm talking about, are you frozen?
No,
Oh,
I'm frozen. I'm frozen in thought because I'm
Okay.
wondering like you say supposed to, by whose will.
So, and I'm talking about the Greeks, just because that's what I've been thinking of. So, like when Socrates and we had this conversation about like what justice actually is, what he was talking about justice is different than the crime and punishment idea of justice that we have in our head. What the idea of justice is supposed to mean, like at its root, is not crime and punishment. It is right and wrong, government right and wrong, and even on how things should be. That's what justice is, how things should be. That's the idea of it, at least in the ancient thing. I think where we start to run awry is when we put on it the obligation. I wouldn't say the authority, but the obligation to actually to tell us what's right and wrong and to punish us for it. Like the punishment for this is you get whatever the punishment is. I don't think that was its original job. What its original job should be, and what it was to say, what are the guidelines of right and wrong? And it didn't expand into it. It was purposefully restrained because they didn't want it to reach into the bedroom. You know what I mean? Because we're talking about ancient Greeks, and everybody knows about like the different ideas of the human body. They had ideas that are literally from a different planet to us right now. But justice wasn't in there. Justice was about what a society should and shouldn't do.
So how did they punish crime?
Well, a just ruler. So a just ruler was a good ruler who is wise and would give appropriate punishments for the crimes. But there was a lot less. Crimes back then were hurting people and taking their things, and also not obeying the gods, and that's where Socrates got into trouble. But because he especially because he talked about that shouldn't be a law. The theology shouldn't be the law. You know, in some ways he said that. That's a gross generalization, but the crimes back then were hurting people and hurting their things. And so that's why I'm saying, like, we've gone outside the scope of that.
Which really isn't a bad. It's not a bad basis for law.
Right.
Like you could like maybe you could boil it down to those things.
Yeah.
Don't hurt people, don't take their things.
Yeah.
I mean, is there a just law outside of those issues?
That's the only thing that is just to enforce, because let's talk about theology. Especially today, a critical person should be able to acknowledge that laws shouldn't govern theology, and theology shouldn't govern laws. Those should be two separate things. So take the theology out of it. Hurting people, you have all, like, you can dissect that and say, make specific crimes, because I'm talking about like things like there's gray areas that you want the government to control. You want the government to set society to set a standard of, like, what's the age of consent. I want that to be something that we agree on, because I don't want that to be open for interpretation.
Right.
You know what I mean? What's the age of consent? I don't know. That you can make situation or other examples like that, but you take out religion, you take out the sexual crimes, because that's obviously falls under hurting people. I mean, there's no room for drug laws or non-violent laws. Like, I'm gonna say, just
Well,
like
the argument comes in. I don't think it's a weak argument, but the argument still comes in that, well, gambling hurts people and meth addiction hurts people, and what are some other
so does hitting yourself in the head, or so does alcohol and tobacco and sugar.
Yeah, no, I mean, certainly not to the same degree as meth.
Well, what's killing more Americans every year, sugar or meth?
Yeah, but per capita, like per user.
Okay,
Though.
who do you think's affected more, or what percentage of the population is affected more? You think America is hurt more by meth right now, or is hurt more by sugar?
Sugar.
Absolutely.
So could you make the argument? I don't make this argument, but could you make the argument that if it was legal, that you would have people putting meth in their tea instead of a cup of sugar? It doesn't flesh out, but you know what I'm saying?
Yes.
If you legalize it, could you create a situation where, yeah, the whole country is wrecked by meth like we are sugar?
Yeah, and maybe to where people grow up with either enough discipline or not enough discipline, or enough common sense, or maybe not enough common sense to control that. Because maybe there is a world, we don't know, because it's prohibited. Maybe there is a world. I mean, there's not a lot of difference between meth and Adderall, and there's a lot of functioning adults on Adderall, including a lot of judges and a lot of doctors and a lot of governors.
Did I send you that video of the kid that thumb punched the Mountain Dew and then shotgunned it? Because it all comes full circle.
Okay.
There's a reason why even that 64-ounce bottle of Dr. Pepper you've got there. Well, no, okay. So there's a reason why you were drinking Diet Coke.
Yeah.
You've got access to sugar.
Yeah.
You've got access to as much sugar as you want. You could buy a bunch of sugar right now with the cash, that you've got at hand.
I got a pound of it sitting in my cupboard.
Pounds, dropping elbows.
Yeah.
But you choose not to, because you're a responsible adult. And so the argument is that you could also have a pound of meth up in your cabinet and use it appropriately or responsibly. Is that the
Sure.
argument?
Yeah, and also, just like that sugar, heart failure and whether this is nature or nurture, obesity and heart failure run in my family big time on both sides. And I think about that. My mother died from heart failure and she was a diabetic. I think about that with sugar. I don't like sugar because A, I think it killed my mom, but B, I have a natural, what is it, predeposition, whatever. I have a natural predisposition sensitivity to sugar. And I don't even want to go down that road. Unless it's chocolate, I hate sugar. I don't like donuts. I don't like cakes. I don't like cookies. It's just chocolate or nothing.
So a lot of the modern drugs that we've got are now I'm talking completely. I'm making stuff up at this point. I don't know if it's true or not. In my mind, that's when I'm the most right. In my mind, it seems that a lot of drugs that we've got today are souped up, kind of high speed, high technology versions of what people have been using for centuries, thousands of years, since the beginning of time. So cocaine, for example.
Yeah.
You could get a coca leaf and chew on it and get something from it.
And indigenous people have for thousands of years.
But it's, from what I understand from watching National Geographic, it's so different from the cocaine that you would get on the street corner today, with chemicals and all of this process that has been through it.
There used to be a picture, it doesn't exist anymore. There used to be a picture of me holding 6 pounds of cocaine.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What happened to those 6 pounds of cocaine?
Oh, those 6 pounds of cocaine. It's funny you should ask. They were stolen again. They were stolen and
what the heck?
I know.
Stolen again?
Yeah.
You stole them from him, and then
I stole them from the smuggler, and then someone else stole them from property and evidence.
Gotcha. Sometime we should talk about that day when we walked back there and he was all sweaty and gross.
Yeah, as we walked back, we thought, isn't that
I think
every indicator? Yeah.
Yeah, I think one of us made the joke. Turned out to be a little too close to home, a little too real.
Yeah.
But I do fully support legalization of all drugs, and I would even
legalization with regulation, I think, right?
Well, regulation, that's the same thing, though. The government telling you what you can and can't do.
Well, there has to be. So, okay. So this is something that you have to talk about. There has to be some, because like with consent or with these drugs, I don't want my 17-year-old who his brain is not done forming yet. I don't want him to have access to alcohol. I don't want him to have legal access to alcohol. I know he can get it if he wants to.
Why? Where's the legal part come in?
Because I know he's an idiot and he doesn't know what too much is. He doesn't know what making decisions on while you're buzzed or while you're drunk are.
Yeah, but wouldn't you rather if he goes out with some friends tonight, and we're going to take drunk driving out of the mix, because that's a different topic. He goes out with friends tonight, you find out he's been drinking. Would you rather the consequences come from you or from a police officer that you don't know? Or a system, the same system that's making him take all these freshman English classes.
Yeah.
Just to check boxes.
Well, you're referencing a conversation we didn't have on the podcast. We had that conversation.
Sometimes I do that.
Yeah. No. Yeah, but I obviously want me to be the one to stop him and to catch him from doing that. But if I'm not there, even if he's going to get the worst case scenario, a DUI, I want someone to stop him from hurting himself or someone else.
You froze for a second. So what did you say right before you said you want someone to stop him from hurting someone else?
I said, well, I'm glad it kind of froze, because I said worst case scenario, but obviously this isn't the worst case scenario. But even if he were to get a DUI as a 17-year-old, I would rather that happen than him hurting himself or someone else.
Yeah, for sure. But I don't know. I think that I think there's a little bit of I think there's some hypocrisy with that.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a dichotomy, as Jocko would say, or Jacko. That's what I call him sometimes.
Yeah. I just don't. I mean, with kids is where it gets hard. That's
Right.
that's really the
And what that should be is a societal rule, because it should be in a tribe. It should be 150 people that know each other. We've all raised each other's kids. We're all taking care of ourselves. But obviously, the horse is out of the barn since the age of agriculture. We can't go back to that.
okay.
But the most natural thing would it to be a tribe. So now we need society to be our tribe. And just like your tribe, you need society to look out for your kid when you're not there to look for him. Because in a tribe, that's what would happen.
Well, that's what we've tried to do with laws, though.
Yeah. Yeah. So, and you and think about in a tribe. In a tribe, do you think it would fly for someone to say, "Hey, we're actually gonna put Justin in a cage because we found these leaves in his pocket"? The tribe would say, "Hey, fuck you, man! Let him out of that cage."
And we also took his mule and his sack of money. Now go on, now get.
Yeah. Yeah, that wouldn't work. I mean, like I said, I
Yeah.
don't know how you get back to that, but we need to think of it as like a tribe. And because government's not a government. What a government is just people. It's just people. And it's a group of people. And they're people
Yep.
just like you, just like me. Sometimes they drink too much coffee. Sometimes they don't take their depression meds. Sometimes they have an undiagnosed thing. But it's just a person. Like, there's not the police force.
Yeah.
There is Clayton when he's on duty. And that's who you're getting at the car.
Yeah.
And so
That's a really good way to, I think, conceive of all walks of life.
Yeah.
That it's just a dude. It's just a person. It's just a person. Just a girl, whatever, that has the same emotions and the same thought process and the same ego, the same the same
agenda
questions.
sometimes.
Yeah. That's
kind of agenda.
That's worth considering. But I still think that if we say there's regulation, if we say that it has to be regulated, then all a law is just a stronger regulation. A law is just a stronger regulation.
Sure. Yeah, absolutely.
So if we say we don't want drug laws, should there be drug regulations?
Okay, so think about this. Like, there's perspectives that we have to consider that I don't think we as in Midwestern 80s, 90s kids, white Christian males have considered this. But like, we're obviously anti-regulation, and the extreme version of regulation is communism. And that's why we're all so scared of it, because I don't want to live in North Korea,
Mm-hmm.
That's the extreme version of regulation.
Will you remind me to ask you a question about something similarly related to that later?
Sure. But like in Europe, they have regulated the food industry in a wise way to like not allow preservatives, not allow as many dyes, not allow
as much flavor.
No, you haven't been to Europe.
I have.
You've been to England.
English food is terrible.
England. Yeah, English food is terrible. Italian food? I had pizza in Naples, the birthplace of pizza.
Yeah, but wasn't it probably like a whole tomato on like a piece of mozzarella cut off? Like, that ain't pizza, bro. Give me something.
I had it with a glass of champagne. I was drunk. I was drunk on Liberty. But so they have regulations, and their food is still like So people with celiac disease can go to Europe and eat the bread, eat their wheat bread, because they don't spray their wheat with glyphosate, and they don't
Yeah.
spray their wheat with all this stuff that causes these inflammatory diseases that are running rapid in the US. That's because of regulation. Because like a tribe in a way, or at least that's how I think I can see it, like a tribe, they said, hey, even though we can make more money, or even though Bobby can make more money if he puts this product into his little bread operation, we're going to say that he can't do that because it's going to make us sick. All right, Bobby, sorry, you can't put that into your bread. It makes us sick.
Okay, so then the regulations, I think we could be good on the regulations being applied to the manufacturers or to the industry,
Yeah.
but there's no regulation in Europe on you consuming glycogen or
Right.
whatever. If you
Yeah.
want to add that to your wheat, then go for it. Go nuts.
Yeah. Yeah.
But not everybody is going to get it, because we don't want everybody to have it.
Well, right. We don't want people to make money off of it. We don't want people to make money off something that can hurt someone. I don't know. I don't
Yeah.
know. I
I
still
mean,
have to work that out.
I think I could get behind, and I agree with regulations and laws for corporations. It's when it comes to the individual that it seems like it's more problematic.
Yes. Yeah. Corporations, I think if history has taught us anything, especially modern history, if you want to look not very deep into some things, what we should be afraid of are big groups of people that have power, or maybe even little groups of people that have power over everyone, like
That are making
corporations.
lots and lots of money.
Lots of money. Money,
Yeah.
money, money.
Which yeah, I've said it before, not on here before, but in terms of different legal systems, I truly don't believe there's different legal systems among different races.
Right.
However, among classes, it's a completely different ballgame.
Oh,
Just
man.
like they operate in a world, and Epstein is a perfect example of this.
Yeah.
O.J. Simpson's a good example of it. Robert Durst, if you've watched The Jinx, which is a really cool, really good show.
Okay.
You could go on and on. The mega wealthy, they just live by different rules.
Bernie Madoff
Yeah.
stole billions from people.
Yeah.
What? This is just business. This is how it works.
Yeah.
Did it for
So
decades.
yeah, I'm on board with, and really that's justice.
Yeah.
Is protecting people.
That's
protecting
part of justice.
people over corporations, or even another individual making money. I have to think about that one for a second.
Well,
I don't have time to think about that. But in terms of like individual versus corporation.
Yeah, you have to put the good of the people above, and the good of the majority above the good of the few. It has to be the good of the majority, the good of people above the good of any one person or any group. I'm not saying people can't do good. I'm not saying people can't prosper even. Like there should be millionaires and there should be billionaires. Those are people that we can look up to,
Yeah.
But they definitely shouldn't have any special treatment.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. I was going to say this starts to approach a conversation that I don't like.
Okay.
I don't like the assumption that if somebody's a millionaire or billionaire, that they've done something wrong, or that they owe anybody else, or that they should even be taken down a notch or two. Like, a CEO, I think, is a good example, that if a CEO is worth billions of dollars and they built their business by paying their laborers $10 an hour, that disparity is none of my business.
Yeah.
Like if the people choose to work there and he pays them what they consider a fair wage, and he's been able to create whatever he has, then good on him. I don't think there's any obligation that he should give his employees more because he's made so much more.
Are you there?
What are you thinking?
Now, but what if he knows and he is even if he's not, he is surrounded by economists. If he is a successful business owner, or at least he knows what economy is. What if he knows that his employees making $10 an hour, which they're grateful for, they love the $10 an hour. What if he knows they can't afford uh, a livable house for them and their family with that $10 an hour? Is it still okay, even if they're not complaining?
The government shouldn't have anything to do with it. I
No,
think it's
no,
in,
the government shouldn't. But is that right for him?
no, not at all. Not at all. But that's where I wish the universe would be more would be quicker to give rewards. Because I think stuff like that, like, when I say that what you put in the universe is what comes out, sometimes it's not till the end of your life. But I think that if he were to put in good toward his employees, I think that he would receive good back, because he's putting in negative. Yeah, it looks like he's getting good. He's got all this money, but I think in the end, karma is gonna have the last laugh. But what I'm saying though, ultimately, is I wish that he would give them more, but I don't think that we should. I don't think that we should march on Wall Street for it, and I don't think that, or whatever, march for whatever you want. But I'm saying you don't have you don't have an argument. It's his money. It's his business, her business, whoever.
But what if you just march to say that's not right?
I mean, there's nothing wrong with it, except marching generally just kind of pisses me off. Like, it just annoys me.
Yeah,
I get the concept,
because you're the man.
probably. I used to march for against abortion when I was a kid.
Yeah.
Did all the abortion marches. All of the Occupy stuff and all of the protests and all, even if it's a
Occupy was
cause
pretty
that I
righteous.
support. Yeah, but what I'm saying is, even if it's a cause I support, this concert a while back at Century 2, and there were people like protesting for Palestine. And I'm just like, the people going to this concert, do you people out here, the 8 or 12 people protesting, what are you doing? Like, they're saying,
Raise
like,
awareness.
but that's maybe whatever. But all they're raising is agitation, and you're not
Hey,
talking to
Fogey.
anybody that can do anything about it.
Hey.
I have zero control over what's going on in Gaza right now.
Hey,
And
boomer.
and neither do you. What?
Yeah, but maybe if enough of us make a loud enough stink about it, the government might listen more. I don't know. It seems like that's what happens. Especially the current government, definitely bends toward the will of populism, of whatever's trending. It seems like whatever's trending with the young folks, the current administration really likes to back up. You see that because they're talking out of both sides of their mouth. They are simultaneously supporting Israel, which is who they're really supporting, but they're also giving aid to Palestine.
Yeah, which is all. You say at the beginning of these episodes that we don't really have any authority to say what we're saying, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because
yeah.
I'm just spitting stuff out like I know it. But obviously that's about money. Obviously, our support is about somebody getting rich or somebody keeping power, not about what's righteous or what's just or what's good or anything like that. Because I think the truth of the matter is, if we're after justice, then sometimes we're going to support people that last time we fought.
Yep.
Or, do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But it's not about that. It's about power and control and money and all that kind of thing.
Making money.
So
obvious.
So to bring it all kind of, I guess it does kind of connect to what I wanted you to remind me of. All of these protests going on college campuses, the Palestine protests and all that kind of stuff. Two pieces to it. One, the protests themselves, and then two, have you considered the the sympathies that are being brought up, the sympathies that are growing for places like Palestine, which necessarily is connected to Hamas, or maybe it is Hamas, or whatever, terror groups, recognized terror groups. And I saw in the headlines yesterday or the other day that the administration is giving a based from violence and all this kind of stuff.
Wait. The administration is given what?
Sanctuary to people that are fleeing violence and things like that. And that's a thing. Like, I get it. Like, for sure, there are people that are fleeing violence that need to be here, and it doesn't matter where they came from. But like, are we just blindly opening ourselves up, our borders, and allowing people in that at some point could be dangerous?
We're doing all of those things. So I know interpreters that no one has heard from since Afghanistan was given back over to the Taliban. And we know that the Taliban was actively hunting. They said they were going to hunt and punish anyone who helped the U.S. coalition. There are interpreters that did not get approved to bring their family. They got approved to bring themselves, but they couldn't come with their family. So they stayed in Afghanistan to take care of their family. Like, if you're not going to let me bring my wife and my kids, I have to stay here to protect my wife and kids.
So the option being, I could come here alone and be safe, or stay there with my family and likely be killed.
Yeah. And so that's
Okay.
what they did. And no one's heard from them since. That happens while there is a wide open southern border. And it doesn't, I have family members who think I'm crazy for saying this, but I don't see much of a leap in logic. These people that are just coming through this wide open border, who do you think they're going to vote for whenever they eventually gain the right to vote? Because eventually they will have the right to vote. If they follow the perfect scenario and they get, they become a U.S. citizen, there's two major parties in this country. One of them wanted to keep them out, and the other one wanted to let them come in with, arms, with arms wide open.
Well, I'm running to the arms wide open.
Yeah, of course you're going to. They saved my life, and especially in their mind, it might be true. They say, because all they have to do is come in and claim sanctuary status or whatever. It's not called sanctuary anymore. What is it called?
I don't know, but I get the concept.
Yeah, and so Border Patrol gives them a court date for 2 to 7 years in the future. There's 7-year court dates happening for people who come across the border right now.
Holy cow.
And so, hey, all right, you're here. And they get a plane ticket. That is a real thing. They get a plane ticket to go anywhere you want. All right, here's your court date. It's going to be in 2 years. Where do you want to go?
So you're saying you get stopped by the Border Patrol in Arizona.
Uh-huh.
You got a court date in 7 years.
If you claim sanctuary status, yeah.
Okay. And I want to go to Philadelphia. Here's a ticket to Philadelphia.
Yep. And here's humanitarian, which I don't think is bad, but here's humanitarian resources. As far as I think a lot of these are not NGOs, but they give them cell phones. They give them some spending cash. They'll give them like Uber rides, and they'll get them resources where they can go, and get their food stamps or some places, whatever set up. They get resources from these NGOs.
Well, I think the humanitarian aid that's kind of a no-brainer. Like
sure.
That's not a question. But do you think that's a good thing or a bad thing or a just thing or righteous? Like,
no,
what is justice here?
So justice would be wise. The same reason we have doors that lock on our houses is the same reason we have to have secure borders, because we don't want anyone to come in without us knowing about it, or at least without us saying it's okay for them to come in. If we are a sovereign society, we should be able to. I live in Atlanta. There was a girl killed here by an illegal alien that was deported and came back. This illegal alien was deported, came right back, killed a girl here in Georgia. I should not, my kids are here in Georgia. It is a real fear for that to happen.
But that doesn't have anything to do with his deportation, or I mean, other than the fact that physically his body would have been elsewhere. The fact that he committed this crime doesn't have anything to do with his nationality or
absolutely
citizenship or anything like that.
But if we would have had a secure border, he wouldn't have come in that way. He wouldn't have come in the way that he did. He came across a wide open border.
Yeah. So that would be an argument for just the fact that by sheer number of people, there would be fewer people. So because of that, there would be fewer. Is that not what it's saying? What you're saying?
That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is that guy, or maybe, I don't know, maybe we're not talking about the same part, but this guy would not have been here if the border wasn't open. And this guy had been deported before, came back across a wide open border, and then killed a girl here.
Had they had a previous relationship or something? Or
I don't know any of those details.
Yeah. So I get your point. Your point is valid, but I think I think the strength of it is just saying that from a practical perspective, that specific individual wouldn't have been here. It's the same concept as, well, that person had their license suspended, and if they hadn't been driving, they wouldn't have caused a wreck. Yeah, but the behavior, it could have been somebody else. It likely would have, whatever.
But what I was really getting at is we have to have it. It's common sense to have secure borders, just like it's common sense to lock your door.
Yeah. If nothing else, I think that it kind of like what we were saying earlier, that society agrees upon a set of behaviors that's acceptable and it's not acceptable. And in this neighborhood, in this gated community, this is how we agree that this is how we're going to behave, generally speaking.
And now, why am I going to respect the authority? And obviously I do respect and I obey all laws, but why would I want to respect the authority of a government that tells me I can't smoke weed while they're not protecting me in the interest of me and my family and my country by having this wide open border? Like, what do you mean?
Yeah. That's kind of, I think, basic human understanding, that if I don't think you care about me, then you've got no authority over me. Like, I may obey you. I may obey you because
you have a badge and a gun.
Yeah. But in terms of like, if you don't care about my well-being, then I'm certainly not going to follow you as a leader. Like, I'm not going to, you know what I mean? I'm not going to trust you.
If I can get a medical retirement, I will. How about that? I'll leave this country with them. I might cut that part out.
So what part about my brain, you messed me up with the cut that part out. So we'll have to cut this part out too. In terms of like the protests and stuff like that, like, are those as valid as the Occupy Wall Street protests? And to be really, really clear, I don't have a dog in this fight. I don't know enough about, I was thinking about this last night. I don't know enough about the region. I don't know enough about the history. I'm not there. The only information I've got, the only information any of us have, is from somebody who's not telling the whole truth.
Right.
Whatever side you're listening to.
We're only getting a part of this whole story.
Yeah. So anyway, that being said,
I think they're annoying and you should be able to make fun of them. I think you should be able to make fun of them and call them nerds, and they're annoying.
What about that Georgia? I think it was a Georgia trooper that just picked that kid up and like carried him out. Have you seen that video?
Yeah. There's a couple badass Georgia troopers recently. There's one a few months ago where he pitted this guy. And
I saw that.
He jumped out of his window and got on the hood and put the gun in the dude's face. I was like, yeah.
And he had a tailored shirt. I think both of these dudes had tailored shirts.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Dang, what was I talking about?
Oh, they were annoying. You should be able to make fun of them.
They're annoying. You should be able to make fun of them. You should be able to call them nerds, but they should have the same reverence that we treat with voting and with exercising your Second Amendment right and the sanctity of your Fourth Amendment right, because the freedom to protest and, to complain about your government is protected in the First Amendment of the Constitution. I
But
think.
they're
Go
Go
ahead.
ahead. Well, okay. So, but let's say that I'm sending my kid to a $120,000 a year college,
Uh-huh.
and she's got to walk through that to get to class, if they even have class. Which that's probably a different conversation about the state of universities and colleges and education. But let's leave that for another time. What
She's
about
got to
that?
walk. She's got to walk through democracy, baby. That's what she's got to walk through. She's got to walk through the people raising their voice in complaint against the government, and it's annoying. And I'm not saying I'm not saying you should be able to shut down a highway. I'm not saying you should be able to walk onto a highway, but on a college campus, there's a bunch of young, stupid kids that don't know anything about the world. They're just believing what these parrot professors tell them. And that's true, but we have to treat that with the same reverence that we give voting and my protection against illegal search and seizure, me exercising my Second Amendment right, my freedom of religion. It's protected. And it's enough that we fought a war for it.
So should there be a point where, like, I've again just see headlines because I don't read a lot of the stories, people being arrested and protests being broken up and curfews, and you saw a lot of that. We've seen a lot of that over the past several summers with
BLM.
Police protests and stuff like that. Like, at what point should it be regulated?
When it becomes a crime. When we don't have to make new laws.
Yeah, but
we already have crimes.
That's the same thing that WPD did with Riverfest, where they made it a crime to 3 people wearing the same color walking in a group.
Right.
You just make up crimes and then it's against the law.
That's a separate conversation. Well, I don't know. I guess it's part of part of a bigger conversation and the laws that we have. So just like you said, we already know that drug laws are bad, or, that we're against drug laws. But when I'm a cop, my job is to enforce the laws. But that was bullshit. That's kind of bullshit back then too. Situational dependent, case by case basis. But, I mean, if you want to look at it that way, you could arrest anyone for, disorderly conduct just because they're arguing. You know what I mean? If we don't do that because we have common sense as law enforcement officers, because we exercise our discretion that we have the authority to have. So I don't know. It's a complicated issue, and I loved arresting people for drugs. So I'm not saying, it was bad doing that, but
yeah, that's maybe a little bit of a different scenario, because even though both of us, you've been far more, maybe not far more, you've been a bit more libertarian than I have for longer. But I think both of us, our views on drugs, period, have changed quite a bit.
Yeah.
So, like, I really thought, on one hand, I was proud of what I did, because I still am. But, like, even specifically with taking people's drugs, like, I was doing my job. I was enforce the law, and so I enforced the law. Where that kind of falls apart is it was still the law to take somebody's weed pipe, and I didn't always take their weed pipe because I didn't care. You know what I mean? So there was a moral judgment because I cared about taking their meth or their heroin, so I took it. If I was just enforcing the law, then I should have taken and done whatever. Actually, I don't know if, let's assume that this happened, whatever the statute of limitations is. What I'm referring to was a long, long time ago, before the statute of limitations, or Yeah,
It's
you know what I'm
it's
trying to
actually
say.
a hypothetical situation. It actually never
Yeah, that's
happened.
what I'm talking about. I don't even know what, but you know what
Actually,
I'm
I have a head
saying.
injury. Yeah.
That's
Yeah. Yeah. I'm not feeling, I'm definitely not ashamed of what I did as a law enforcement officer. And you and I, you were a law enforcement officer longer than I was, but we were both cops when it was controversial. Like society was looking really hard at cops. And I guess
hmm.
they still are, but I feel like they've backed off during those. We had a couple really hot summers there.
I'll wait till you oh, there you are. Something that's a conversation again for a different day, uh, is how abandoned I felt by society.
Oh,
Like,
I came home and wanted to cry sometimes. People were looking at me in the face screaming, "Why do you hate me? Why are you killing me?" And I don't hate you. I love you. I'd die for you if given the opportunity.
yep. Uh, and the way, and this is why I think a lot of times I have such a visceral reaction to the media. The way that we were played and used as pawns by the media just absolutely made and makes me sick. But yeah, I really felt abandoned by society. Um, on there was we'll save it for the whole conversation because we're coming up on an hour and 50 minutes. Um, in terms of the protests, though, you think that they should at the very least be allowed, and I don't think anybody would disagree with that. They should absolutely be allowed. Is it where when they start breaking stuff? Like when?
Oh yeah. Yeah. So whenever you start, so the laws that we should enforce, like I said, not walking three people in the same color shirt, but when you start hurting people or hurting their things, when you start hurting people or when you start hurting people or hurting property, that's the line. Oh, then it should be, whatever the proper escalation of force. At first, hey, stop doing that. And if you don't, you know, everybody's got their own escalation of force on that. But at least, yeah, that's what police should do. That's a righteous function of police, to stop people from hurting other people and hurting their things.
Yeah, I really do think that it should boil down to that. I think that all laws should boil down to that. Don't hurt people, don't take their things.
Yeah,
Uh,
take or destroy the things, and or don't stop them from being able. You know, like you shouldn't be there. I don't know that. I guess maybe that's getting in the weeds. But what do you think of, like, I want to say you can't stop someone's pursuit of life, liberty, or pursuit of happiness, but
yeah, I mean
that's
that's
maybe too philosophical.
well, I mean, I love philosophy, but in terms of like being practical, like, yeah, I see what you're saying. Um, is that not kind of the mantra of libertarianism? Don't hurt people, don't take their things.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely.
No.
And there's an extreme militant version of it that, just like anything else, the extreme version just doesn't make sense. Like, hey, I get it.
Yeah, like
But
anarchy.
yeah, anarchy is the extreme. Yeah, that's what it would be.
I wish that there was I wish there was a way that we could get that type of government in our country.
Man,
I think there's just too much money involved in party politics
there's
and
a
not
there's a
enough
roadmap
involved.
for it.
You think?
Yeah, the first thing you have to do is you have to take money out of politics. You have to
That's that's it.
you have to take money out of politics. You have to make it illegal. You have to make it illegal and punishable by prison for them to make money on insider knowledge, like it is for everyone else. Everyone else in the country, it is illegal. It is illegal and punishable by prison to make money with insider knowledge, insider trade knowledge. They do it all the time, and it's
Yeah.
people on both sides of the aisle. You have to take away. You have to take away the protections that corporations give to political donations, because I think it was in 2010, the Supreme Court said that corporations should have the same protections, or should have the same liberties as citizens, that basically corporations are citizens, and
Hmm.
a citizen can donate as much money as they want to a political person. And so a corporation should be able to do that. Well, the corporation has a GDP. Some corporations have a GDP bigger than most countries.
Yeah. Yeah. And
And
also, go ahead.
they influence. So with that money, you're influencing the future.
Yeah.
These corporations have power over these politicians. They're bought and paid for.
Yeah. And they can make lots and lots of more money based on what they're buying with the
Let's say
politician.
Let's say that a scenario arose where the government could say, to stop this bad thing from happening, we're going to require everyone to get this thing, a pocket watch. We're going to require everyone, you have to have this pocket watch to stop the solar eclipse bad thing from happening. The government says you have to do this to protect everyone. There you go. You have to get these glasses or this pocket watch. Well, then they're going to say, hey, you can't make us buy something. What if there's poor people out here? The government's then going to say, don't worry, we'll pay for it.
Okay.
And we print money anyway, baby. We're going to pay for this. And so that would be really, really beneficial to the person who makes the company who's making these pocket watches.
Right.
It might even be worth that company to give these politicians a really nice job after they retire, and to do this for generations where they see, did you see what Bob got whenever he retired? Yeah, Raytheon really took care of him. Or, Epstein really took care of him. And so that's just how the game is played. That's logic. Like, obviously I don't know. There are words that you can say on YouTube to trigger some things I've heard. I don't even want to play with that, but there's multiple scenarios where you could say there's corporations that want politicians to do A, B, or C. And these politicians see other politicians that have done A, B, and C for these corporations, and they get taken care of pretty dang well. Their books all sell out. They go on these speaking tours after they're out of office and make millions of dollars. An event. They're taken care of. I want that. Guess what? Hey, ABC company, what do you need me to do?
Yeah. So that's got to be a first step is, like I don't think that public officials shouldn't be destitute by any means, but they should have a modest salary and not be able to accept money from
That's right.
From outside sources.
It should be illegal. It should be considered bribery, is what it should be. And then you have to, you're going to have to break up the bureaucracy. I don't know about break up. You have to downsize the government, man. You have to, the government is so big that it has to keep doing these things to support itself. There has to be government.
It's the same thing as the drug money. Like it's an industry, just like law enforcement. If it dried up, there'd be a whole lot of people with like, you take so much money out of the economy.
Yeah. And we're going to have to navigate that. The government needs to downsize drastically in order for these moral objectives, things that we all agree should happen. Like laws should honestly be about protecting people and protecting their things. That's what laws should be about.
Is there ever an example of any government or what would you call it? We'll just say government. Any government getting smaller without being divided by, without being defeated? Like, does any organization is not the right word.
I think I know what you're saying. I heard a comedian, and gosh, I forget his name, but Jim Jeffries? No, not Jim Jeffries. He's this British comedian. Anyway, a couple months ago, maybe a year ago, he was on Joe Rogan, and he said something that really stuck with me, because Joe Rogan was talking about like the end of the world, America, It's either going to end like Rome, where they're totally defeated, or this machine's going to keep on growing until it eventually ends like Rome, and Rome goes, is no more. And this comedian was like, no, what it seems like to me is you guys are going to go the way of England. You guys are going to go the way into obscurity, because eventually you're like, America is the superpower. And I think we're obviously starting to see where we're not the only superpower. And it's conceivable to where maybe China is bigger than us.
Yeah.
Maybe China, or, maybe Russia, or maybe these other these other conglomerations. Eventually, America might go the way of England into obscurity just a little bit, to where we're still very profitable. We're still have a great economy. We have our ups and downs, but maybe we're not the rulers of the empire anymore.
Yeah.
And I think that would be okay. I'd be okay with it, but it was painful for England. England lost a lot of wars to get to that point.
Empire. An example of an empire that said, we're too big, we need to take up less of a footprint, we're gonna scale down, because I don't think that's the way power works.
People don't give it up.
Yeah, I don't know that people willingly give it up.
Yeah. So, well, I mean, what is the past? So geographically, I mean, an idea, there's lots of different thought experiments, but an idea that I think would work, I don't know what it takes to get here, or even if it's 100% good thing, but let's say the country is divided, because there are big groups of people, obviously, that don't think like the other big groups of people here in this country. You know what I mean? To the point to where it gets violent sometimes.
Yeah.
So let's say, like in a perfect world, okay, if you are, we'll just say super Republican. If you're super Republican, we're going to give you Texas, Oklahoma. Yeah, Texas, Oklahoma, Western Kansas, Arkansas, Mississippi, maybe Louisiana, Alabama, Tennessee, Georgia, maybe not, Florida, maybe not, the Carolinas, maybe not, Virginia, no. But we'll give you this Republican land. Okay.
Yeah.
If you're super libertarian, we'll give you the West, like Nevada, Colorado, Arizona. We'll give you these mountain range, the Rockies. We'll give you the Rockies.
Okay.
If you're super, if you're super blue, you're wherever the super blue places are. If that happened,
New England.
Yeah. New England, New York, California. Yep. I mean, if those were different countries, do you think maybe we wouldn't have as much conflict? But how did the logistics?
I'm not gonna lie, dude. I'm thinking I would maybe consider that as a viable option, and I would totally live in the Rockies.
Absolutely.
I would opt, or I would politic for California, or at least Southern.
Uh-huh.
I think that'd be a pretty sweet deal. From a societal perspective, I think we lose sight of the fact that we actually benefit more from people that disagree with us than we would like to admit.
Yeah.
But as a thought experiment, I would just be smoking weed with my homies in the Rockies, man.
Yes.
And nobody would be hurting me. No, the government would, I would keep the money that I earned. Like it would be a dream.
The government would be small, well-trained, and polite. Like, I would want a government to protect me. Maybe like a citizen army, like a citizen, whatever. I'm not going to say anything else about that. But, the government would be small and in check and polite, and we would be like, we'd be all able to defend ourselves. Yeah.
Would the government build the roads? Like, would you have departments for those sorts of things, or would they just defend the borders?
The government, I don't know. So who built the roads before the government did? People.
The people.
Yeah, but I guess it would be like the mayor would order it done,
Which
right?
honestly, what would make the most sense is if the people of Rose Hill wanted a smooth path to the people in Derby, that you would say, "Hey, Derby folks, we'll put up half.
Yeah.
You put up half, and let's build this road."
Yeah.
And the government doesn't have any say in it.
Right. Yeah.
So there,
But
the issue.
you would need a leader. You would need a leader to communicate and to set all this up.
Yeah, and that leader is going to make. Some people are going to want bricks, and some people are going to want designs in the bricks, and some people are going to want cobblestones, whatever. And from a practical perspective, you do say, well, wait a second. This road doesn't just lead. I'm going to change it up. This road doesn't just lead from Derby to Wichita. It goes all the way to wherever it meets I-70. And then from I-70, it goes all the way across the country. So that you would want some uniformity, and you would want some rules for you can't use, we're not using telephone poles. We want some kind of normalcy. But now I'm talking about roads, and I don't really care about roads. So
yeah, but there is going to be logistics, and even besides just defending you need, even if you don't call it a government, even if you call it the council, you're going to need someone who's in charge of making decisions and the logistics of whatever your society's doing. Like I said, you're just not calling it the government anymore for building roads, for the utilities, for the infrastructure.
yeah,
Because even back in the Greeks, they had to eventually build the roads and lay down some laws.
yeah. I don't know, but so I'm getting ready to have to jump off here because I want to go cut down some trees.
I hear you.
But something that struck me as funny the other day is, first off, I'm having a real hard time finding any good information on ancient Celtic religions.
Okay.
But one in my research that I've looked at, they talk about druids.
Yeah.
And dude, I don't know if it was a Scooby-Doo episode or what, but somehow, since I was a child and I never looked back, I never considered, I always thought that I can't even say it right, druids were a specific thing that are not what they were. You know what I mean?
Did you think they were?
I thought they were like kind of shadowy figures with hoods that like sacrifice. Like, I'm telling you, this was a Scooby-Doo episode or something. But in my mind, I thought ancient druids were like shadowy figures that would sacrifice humans to whatever.
Well, what do you understand them now to be?
Well, now I kind of understand them to be like the philosophers or the
they were just
kind
like
of the philosophical class.
Merlin, or the guy that Merlin was based on. I saw this really cool documentary. You got to look it up. It's on YouTube. I think it's an old BBC or something. It looks like it's a copy of a VHS, but it was this documentary on Merlin. Merlin was most likely based on a real guy who was a druid, like in the time of conversion when Wales was being converted from paganism to Christianity. He was most likely a druid around that time. The figure that he's based on, they say there was a war, and like the side that he was on, either one or a lot, but there was a lot of people killed in this war, and they said what we would call it now is PTSD, but even in this documentary they didn't call it that because this was like in the 90s. They're like, he was just so saturated with melancholy that he wandered off into the woods. So this dude suffers severe PTSD from seeing and think about how brutal warfare was back then. And this was even pre-Christianity. They're using like antlers and spears and
Yeah.
So he sees this war, gets PTSD, goes off into the wood, probably takes some psychedelics out there.
Probably find some mushrooms, all kinds of stuff.
mushrooms. I think cannabis was natural to England. I'm not for sure. I know it was natural in Western Europe eventually, but comes back and is a wizard. And he's like this hermit. He comes back and he's like this hermit, wise counselor, the historical figure. That's basically about it. He's a wise hermit, is the historical Merlin. He's a guy who gets PTSD, goes off in the woods, comes back and is a wise hermit. They brought him into the story of Arthur, and they brought him into the story of a couple mostly Arthur, but there's some other stories independent of Arthur. That is obviously fiction, that there's no way. But the real guy had PTSD and probably ate mushrooms and came back as a fucking wizard.
Came back a wizard.
Yeah.
That's life goals. That's what I want to do. I want to come back as a wizard from the Appalachian Trail.
Hell yeah.
Are you talking like hiking or camping or backpacking or?
Yeah.
I don't know that I know necessarily the difference between.
Me neither.
Between all of them.
I've never spent a night on the Appalachian Trail, but I know plenty of people who have, and there are shelters along the Appalachian Trail, or you can bring like a backpack tent, we call them bivouac.
I would love to go backpacking. I absolutely wanted.
Are you there? There you are.
Oh, there you are. All right. Well, I need to go attend to these trees. And
Okay.
just to be super clear, I do literally mean trees. Like,
hell yeah.
I have some spruces out front that I'm going to cut up. So
Hey,
just
stop
so there's
recording. Stop recording real quick.
And as always, this week's episode was brought to you by Steadfast Real Estate Group of Heritage First Realty in Wichita, Kansas. Visit them online at Steadfast, that's SteadfastICT.com, steadfastict.com, or call them at area code 316-461-2806 for all your home buying needs in Wichita, the Wichita area of Kansas. For all your home buying needs in Northeast Georgia, or really all in North Georgia, give me a call. I'm Clayton Blackwood. I'm part of the Hester Group, and we're under Harry Norman Realty. Give me a call at area code 316-409-7907, or visit my website at claytonblackwood.harrynorman.com. Clayton Blackwood is one word, and Harry Norman is one word. You know how the internet works. If you are in the Wichita area and you need a tub painted, call my buddy Jed and his life partner Alex at H&L Resurfacing. Their phone number is area code 316-209-4674. They're both Marine Corps veterans, and that is a locally owned business. They have a track record of success. Okay, next week, or probably in a couple of days, we're going to pick up in a new episode. See you guys then. Love you. Bye.